The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, I guess it is, and welcome to the Wyoming Women's Business Center's 2018 webinar series. Today, our presentation is on Do You Provide Excellent Customer Service? My name is Waldo Smith. I'm the Director of Microlending and a Business Counselor here at the WWBC, and I will be your moderator. If you'll notice on the GoToWebinar control panel on the right side of your screen, there is a section for questions and a panel for chat. If you have a question or a comment during the presentation, please enter them in these boxes. I will be monitoring them and passing them on to the presenter. We had a little bit of a glitch at our last webinar, but we've got it ironed out, so I will have those questions to be passed on. And this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel tomorrow. After we've got it uploaded, just go to youtube.com and type in Wyoming Women's Business Center if you'd like to view it again, or check out our other webinars that we have previously recorded and uploaded. Make sure you subscribe so that you can view those at your convenience. You may want to visit our website, www.wyomingwomen.org, or look for us on Facebook and like our page there. At the end of the presentation, when you exit, a survey will be launched. We ask that you please complete this, as it provides us and our funding partners valuable information. Our presenter today is Christine Langley, one of the business counselors here at the Women's Business Center. Christine is a sales and marketing expert with 15 plus years track record of achievement and demonstrated success driving sales growth in some highly competitive markets. She is also joined by Denise Deem, who is Market and Business Development Officer at Laramie Plains Federal Credit Union. Denise owned her own electronics store for 10 years and managed a furniture store for 15, so she is well familiar with customer service. All participants are muted to minimize background noise. So again, if you have questions for Christine or for Denise, please type them in the question or chat boxes on your control panel. With that, I will turn it over to Christine and go ahead.
Thanks, Waldo. So welcome, everybody. This is a quick glance at today's agenda. I'm going to just go through some information about the Wyoming Women's Business Center so you understand who we are and the type of services that we can provide to you. And then we'll jump right into our interview with Denise, follow that up with some content around essential strategies and communication skills specifically related to customer service. So, what is the Women's Business Center? We promote economic equality in Wyoming through successful business ownership. And we're a nonprofit organization, and our center strives to help people become financially self-sufficient. So we provide really 3 different types of services. The first one is business services and planning. And so we can help you put together a business plan that either is required for a loan application, or just success in your business. And a lot of what we do is coach and inspire. We're the cheerleaders behind your business, trying to keep you going, because sometimes owning your own business can be very isolating. Another thing that we do is networking and educational opportunities. This webinar is an example of an educational opportunity that we present statewide. We also do monthly roundtables in several different locations around the state. And Waldo mentioned previously our YouTube channel that also has access to great content. And then finally, we have a microloan program where we do microloans anywhere from $500 up to $50,000 that can help fund startups or business expansions. And if you'd like more information on that, you can contact Waldo. I'll have his contact information on a slide at the end of this presentation. So we're going to jump right into our interview with Denise, and Denise is on the line. Denise, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hello, everybody.
Excellent. We hear you. And this is a picture of Denise, since we're not using our webcams today, and a picture of me on the left-hand side of your screen, so you know who's talking. We mentioned Denise's business background previously, so I won't repeat that. And Denise, the first question that I wanted to lob out to you was, did you always know that your career was going to be centered around customer service, or was it kind of a surprise?
No, Christine, I've always loved helping people, and that's what customer service is. It's helping people. Right out of high school, I went to Ohio State. I'm an Ohio girl, and after my scholarships ran out, after 2 years, I went to a paraprofessional school and I became a travel agent. I think you know that about me. And I was a travel agent for 10 years in the 80s. It was fun, but it was pretty rough, because you were held accountable for things not in your control: the weather, delayed flights, bad service on the trip. And so when I left that, I knew that I still wanted to stay in the customer service aspect. I just wanted to go into a business where I had control over my accountability, where my customer service came directly from me.
Interesting. All right. So what's your best example of an unhappy customer? Because of course, whenever we think about customer service, we always have a tendency to go towards the negative instead of the positive. So I thought I would just start with an unhappy customer experience. Tell us kind of what happened and why they were upset.
Sure. Well, 10 years as a travel agent, 10 years owning an electronics store, and 15 years in a furniture store, I have 35 years of unhappy customers. So it was interesting to come up with one. But we at the furniture store, we had a customer that had purchased a sectional for her home, and I was trying to think of somebody that was really, really upset. And she came into the store about 10 months after her purchase, and she totally blamed her salesperson for selling her a sectional that didn't fit in her home, even though the salesperson had not ever been in her home, and he was going by her dimensions. But the sectional went about 4 inches past her closet door. So I want you to picture that this woman was living with this sectional in her living room for 10 months, and she had to work around it every time she wanted to get into her closet. And she was yelling. She was very upset. And I came out and I talked to her, and I really quickly surmised that she was really mad at herself. She had let this build up for almost a year. And so she was really projecting how mad she was over the fact that she had let this go on so long, working around this piece of furniture that was too big.
How interesting. All right. So apparently you did some listening, right, before you tried to solve it. But how did you handle that? I'm sure was she making a scene? That's always my favorite.
She was making a scene. She was definitely making a scene. And, the furniture store is a big store, and there's lots of people milling around. And, you try to kind of get them away from the middle of the store. But mainly, you just listen. Like, I just listened to her. I just let her go on. And eventually she calmed herself down. Because no matter what I said, it wasn't going to calm her down. But ultimately, I always knew the whole time she was yelling at me that I was going to take it back. I mean, even though it was a year old, I was going to take back that sectional. So I took it back. I sold it off as used. We lost a little money on it because I couldn't even sell it at cost. But I went to her home. I measured. We discussed some options. We ordered her a new sofa. And really, the new sofa, because it was a special order and it was exactly what she wanted, it had a higher margin. And so I ended up making more money on the sale, even with the loss of the sectional that I sold as used. But I gained a customer for life and a word of mouth advocate for life. I mean, she just thought that was amazing. She came in that store believing there's no way we were going to take back a piece of furniture that she's been using for almost a year. And she never would go anywhere else to buy anything else ever again. And we always went to her home and measured. So that's a good representation.
Well, yeah, and a great solution, especially because you ended up not losing money on it. That's awesome. All right, so What's your best example of of great customer service, successful customer service, and maybe a story that you shared with employees, after the fact or tried to replicate?
So at the furniture store, 23% of our sales were in mattresses. Now that's a lot of mattresses because the national average at the time was 11%. For some reason, people like their sleep in Laramie. So you have to realize that if 23% of your sales, people coming in buying mattresses, we're dealing with a lot of sleep-deprived, grouchy people. They're 1/3 of your life is spent in your bed, and it affects the other 2/3 that you're awake. I mean, I think we can all agree with that. So we did a lot of training on mattresses and how to sell mattresses, but the biggest thing is that you have to listen. You have to ask questions. This purchase is important to them, and I've always dealt in high-ticket, high-dollar purchases, and so it might be a little bit more entailed than buying some little knick-knack, but having a 30-day return policy wasn't enough to advertise. You have to call them. So after 30 days, every single salesperson called that person to see how they liked their mattress. And after the sectional incident, we actually changed our policy that we called everybody after 30 days, because it's a lot easier to sell a 30-day-old sofa than it is to sell a year-old sofa. And it's funny because it's so hard to get the salespeople to buy into this, to call their customer, because guess what the salesperson says? What if they want to return it? What if they don't like it? Well, that's exactly what we want to know. We want to know if they want to return it. We want to know if they're not happy with it. And it ended up that our returns on everything, on every person that we called, our returns were 3%. And we never lost money on those returns. So we put this into play when we purchased the electronics store. We purchased this into play as well. And again, I had a hard time getting my staff to buy into this. What if they want to return it? Well, the funny thing is that the few TV returns that we had, every single one of them was always for a larger TV. Nobody ever gets a TV in their house and says that TV's too big. They get a TV in their house. I should have gone for the bigger TV. So after they realized that this was a good thing, and that's probably the hardest part, is getting your staff to buy into why you're doing it. Why that? Yes, we want to know if you're unhappy.
That makes a ton of sense. I love the follow-up communication. It kind of leads into training employees, which, as you mentioned, is a challenge. And I can only imagine how many employees you've had to train in customer service in your career. What are the key points or the rules that you really want them to understand and implement with your customers?
Christine, I was very fortunate because I worked for a visionary that sent me to leadership training 3 times a year. For over 10 years, I did that down in Mineola, Texas. And before I did that leadership training, though, they train you on an 11-step selling system. And I won't go into that, but every single part of that selling system is important, all the way from approach to the close and then adding on. But the few things that I would take from that is the approach is important, because you have to figure that every single person that comes into your store carries a little bag. They carry a little baggage of a salesperson that wasn't helpful, somebody that just tried to sell them they didn't want, somebody that wasn't knowledgeable. They also carry in that little bag their own personal bad buying decisions, things that they made a mistake on. So you have to break through those barriers first. And the only way to do that is by asking them questions, truly listening and knowing your product and sharing benefits with the feature. An 80-year-old man is not interested that mattress has a 20-year lifetime warranty. He doesn't care about that. He just wants to be comfortable in these last years that he has. So selling something or sharing something that isn't important to them means that you didn't listen. You didn't listen to what they really what they really want and what they really need. Because as salespeople and in customer service, you're there to help them make their best buying decision. So what do you need to know to accomplish helping them make their best buying decision? Because if you've helped them make their best buying decision, then you have a satisfied customer and you've done your very, very best. And it's up to you to share the value of the product and to help them along their process and along their way.
For sure. That's excellent. Well, you set me up beautifully for the content that I'm going to share today. So thank you. And you're welcome to stay on the line, or I'll let you go. And since clearly you're an expert in this field.
Well,
Thanks so much, Denise.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. So we are going to head over to the 7 essentials of excellent customer service. And what I want you to be aware of in the number 1 essential is that every customer wants to be heard, understood, and they want to feel important. And so this is really key to what Denise was pointing to around listening. The second essential is what I call SEC, smile, eye contact, and make some kind of a friendly comment. Eye contact is really important, and there are sometimes you have employees that aren't comfortable with eye contact. Often you have customers that aren't comfortable with eye contact. And so it's okay if your customer isn't making eye contact with you, you still want to show them respect to make eye contact with them. Especially if you have an employee that struggles with eye contact, this is something you want to work with them on, call attention to it, and teach them some tricks. You know, you don't have to look deeply in someone's eyes in order to make eye contact. You can look at their eyebrows or at their forehead, and it simulates that direct eye contact. So some of those things can be helpful with employees. Smiling, you know, it's very difficult for someone to not follow the rule of reciprocity and smile back at you when you smile at them. So I always encourage my employees to smile, make eye contact, and then come up with some kind of friendly, you know, comment or compliment that you can make to that person. It can be, you know, as simple as good to see you today, or I like your necklace, you know, whatever simple thing that you can come up with just to engage them in a friendly manner at the outset. And then again, what Denise pointed to was listening to the customer. And listening can be tough sometimes, especially when we feel like we have the answer to their question. So for example, in Denise's example, she already knew what she was going to do when this woman came in wanting to return the couch. She was going to take the couch back, take the sectional back. It wasn't going to be an issue. But rather than offer that up and interrupt her, she just let her continue to talk, right? And get it all out of her system so that she feels heard and understood and cared for through that process. So active listening is what we call this. And step 1 to active listening is don't interrupt with any of your solutions, just let them share. Step 2 is to ask clarifying questions if needed so that you can understand the problem. And then maintain your listening. Just hold tight until they're completely done talking. The fourth essential is really to empathize with the customer. And I always tell my employees that empathizing is different than sympathizing, right? Sympathizing is, I feel sorry for you, kind of projecting out on that customer. Where when you empathize, your empathy is when you are expressing an understanding of what that customer is going through. So again, in Denise's example of this woman's got this sectional and she's having to work around this door because it's not the right size furniture for that room. There are ways that you can express empathy. You know, a traditional method is the feel, felt, found method. You can say something like, look, I totally understand how you feel. I've had other customers that have felt the same way when they get a piece of furniture that doesn't fit, you know, and what they found is that if we measure appropriately, sometimes we need to do a custom order. And if that's what it takes in order to make you happy, we're going to get it done. So if you heard the feel, felt, found in that sequence, that's an empathy strategy that you can use. The fifth essential is to create solutions for customers' complaints or concerns. And so often, like Denise said, you already have the solution. You've already created strategies, procedures, processes, policies around solutions for customer complaints. And so the essential here is that yourself and your employees have the ability to actually implement those solutions. There's nothing worse than going to a person in a company or in a store and expressing what the problem is, and them saying to you, yeah, I'm not sure what I can do to help you with that. I'll have to get back to you because I'm going to have to ask my manager. I'm going to have to ask my owner. And it turns into a multiple day or multiple week process because the people within the company have not been given authorization or authority in order to solve customer problems or customer complaints. So remember that allowing your employees and having the ability to create the solutions on demand can be really important in customer service. The sixth essential is to really clarify the situation with the client and confirm that they're 100% satisfied. And this can be tough because sometimes you're just ready to move on to the next thing, right? Especially if it was a contentious conversation and you don't want to bring it up again and have them say, well, actually, I'm not 100% satisfied. And what I'd like in addition to returning the couch is I'd like you to give me the new one for free, or whatever it might be. But this is key, especially in our world of online platforms. If people are not 100% satisfied, they might take it out on you online, and we don't want that. We don't want this to turn into an online battle. And so it's important that as an owner and also your employees that they come back after the fact and confirm that they're 100% satisfied. And Denise was really pointing to this when she was talking about having employees call the customers, every single customer 30 days later, to make sure that they were 100% satisfied with their purchase. And so this kind of goes with that, is following up with your customers. So do you have that policy or that procedure in place for follow-up? Is it a phone call? Is it a text message? Are you reaching out to them on social media? Are you sending them a survey or an email? Are you doing all of these things? Are you doing multiple things in order to follow up and make sure you provided excellent customer service? Because if we can get that customer for life, if we can create that loyalty situation, then they become advocates. And as we've talked in previous webinars and trainings, advocates are what we're going for because that's your word of mouth advertising. So we're going to dive right into strategies now. What's the difference between what we just talked about, right, essentials, and strategies? And the main difference is an essential is like a part of the job description for your employee or for a business owner, right? It's the bare minimum that we expect everyone to do. A strategy is a little bit different. A strategy is like the goal. It's what we're trying to create within our company culture. And so these are some strategies to think about so that you as a business owner and your employees can get behind some of these strategies, and then out of those strategies can come the essentials, if that makes sense. So one of the phrases I always loved was be motivated by the fear of being average. And it's really important that everyone in your business is striving to be better than average because it's scary, the percentage drop off that you get from customers that are just satisfied, right? If their experience was just okay, it's not good enough for them to return. Up to 40% of satisfied customers don't return to retail locations. And in restaurants, it's up to 80%, right? So the experience being just okay isn't good enough anymore, especially in food service. Two more strategies. The one I like to hit on, especially when I'm training employees, is pay attention to details. You know, there's that phrase, the devil is in the details, and it's so true. Details are what customers remember. And so think about the buying experience that your customer has when they come into your location. Even if you're an online business, what is the process that they go through in order to purchase your product or service from you? And what are all of the details in that process? And what are the improvements that you could make in order to improve that overall experience? And then also training employees to care like they are an owner. So often as an owner of a business, you know, it's exhausting, right? To train employees over and over and over again, especially when you're in maybe a seasonal business or a business where there's just naturally high turnover. But the way that you get employees to care like they're an owner is through time and investment in those employees, and truly treating those employees the way you want them to treat your customers. So I would always tell my managers, you know, you want your employees to do things not because it's their job, right? Not because it's written in their job description. You want them to do those things because they don't want to disappoint you, because the relationship is so strong that they would never do anything that would disappoint you or hurt you in your position. That's how connected that relationship needs to be with those employees. And they need to feel empowered in order to bring solutions to a customer service issue or problem. And the only way to do that is to train them on processes and procedures and implement policies so they can be empowered as if they were the owner to make those decisions. I've always found the more you empower your employee to solve problems, the more ownership they take in the business, and the easier it is to retain those employees. If you disempower them, and they feel like they have to ask every time they're going to do something or create some kind of solution, then it makes them feel devalued, and they're not going to be as participatory as you'd like them to be in implementing those efficiencies and those customer service strategies. All right, fourth, we always want to analyze when things go right. You know, it's easy to get together and have a pity party about all of the things that went bad in a customer experience, or when we had a negative experience with a customer. It's human nature, right, to go towards the negative. But as a manager, as a leader, as an owner of a business, you want to focus on the positive and when something goes right. I often relate this to child rearing. You know, when I was trying to do, behavior training with my toddlers, I figured out pretty quickly that if I talk about what I don't want them to do, right? Don't run around the swimming pool, or, don't climb the side of the house. That would be my son, up the rafter, or up the gutter. Instead of telling him what not to do, I figured out pretty quickly that telling him what to do was the right approach, right? So instead of saying don't run, I would say walk, please. And it's the same thing with employees. If you can focus on what went right and celebrate the successes and celebrate what went right, reinforce those things, that's a lot more motivating and inspirational than to always talk about what went wrong or what went bad. The fifth strategy is to focus on customer loyalty. And Denise talked about this as well. You know, how do you get a customer for life? So if you will talk to your staff about customer loyalty and about advocacy and about the fact that that's what we're going for, right? We're not going for a satisfied experience, an experience that was okay. The objective here is to gain a customer for life. How do we do that? How do we make that happen? And then implement things around that strategy. A sixth strategy is to use social media. The bottom line is this is just the age that we're in. And for the foreseeable future, it is not going away. And so if you need assistance, technical help in understanding some of these platforms, the Wyoming Women's Business Center can do that for you. The Small Business Development Center also has access to this. All of these services are free. You absolutely need to be using social media in your business. And it's a great customer service strategy that you can implement. It's also something that several of your employees can get involved in. And you can come up with a social media policy of how you respond to customer complaints online, how you handle that. But it's an important aspect in today's business world, and something that everybody needs to be looking at. Seventh is to create a consistent experience. So, I used to own a food truck in the Denver metro area, and we did ice cream. And we had a position that was an expo position. And in food service, an expo is the person that actually delivers the food to the customer, right? So in our case, they pushed this ice cream product in a cup, out to the physical customer outside the truck. And the expo position was almost the most important position on that truck. And it's because they were the end person that was dealing with the customer directly. And so there were a few rules that we had in place in order to create a consistent experience. Because if I push out a product, 1 out of every 3 cups of ice cream I serve is messy and dirty, and it's dripping down the side of the cup, and the waffle chip isn't the right size, or it's crumpled and messy, and I handed them the spoon instead of having the spoon inside the cup. All of those details matter in creating a consistent experience. So again, you want to think about the process and the procedure that you're using when you're engaging with your customer, so that you can create a consistent experience, and you can train your employees on how to create that consistent experience. Because every time they come to my truck and get a scoop of ice cream, I want it to be the same size. I want the waffle chip to not be broken. I want the spoon to go on the correct side of the cup. I want to hand them a napkin. I want to make eye contact. I want to smile at them. I want to give them a compliment on their exit. And if you have all of those details locked down and you can train those employees, then you've successfully created that consistent experience. Now, how do we know if we created the consistent experience? The way that you know is by experiencing your own customer service within your store. So for me, I would stand in line with a bunch of my customers at my food truck, observing, right? How did the order get taken? How did the expo do? What were people saying in line? How fast were we turning customers? And then I would get up and order myself. Sometimes I'd have new employees on the truck, and I hadn't even met them personally yet because my manager had hired them and had done the orientation. That was always my best way of secret shopping. But finally, I also made it personal, right? So I always want customer service to be a personal experience. And my favorite line that people used to say in business was, "Oh, it's not personal, it's business." And that is just a complete fabricated lie, right? This is your business. It's your blood, sweat, and tears. It's absolutely personal. And the experience that the customer is having is personal too. A lot of times the things that they're buying are very personal to them. Denise's example of buying a sectional in someone's home, this is a very personal purchase. Of course it's personal. So it's okay to make it personal and to take things personally in your business. And that's actually a strategy that we want to teach our employees, is to make it personal with our customers. And so our last strategy is to really create a culture of service. How do we do that? And I mentioned this before, I think the easiest way to create that culture of customer service is to treat your employees the way you want your customers to be treated. And then last but not least, of course, don't forget to say thank you. Thank you is always an easy thing. It's amazing how many people forget. And so whatever it takes, if you have to put a Post-it note up or write something on your hand or put a rubber band around your wrist, whatever you need to do to remember, always remember to say thank you. So whenever I talk about customer service, I always like to give a few communication skills or tips at the end of any training that I do, because a lot of times people get tongue-tied, right? When they are responding to a customer complaint. They're not sure what to say. They're not sure what to do. And so these are just a couple of communication skills that I want to leave you with. The first is matching and mirroring. So people really like people who are like them, or they like people who they want to be like. And so matching and mirroring is really a skill. You know, if someone comes in and they're being very demonstrative, you know, and they're using a lot of facial expressions, you know, sometimes they want someone to just get as animated or as excited as them. One of my favorite examples of this is in a past life, I actually managed a data center. And one of the things that would happen in a data center is sometimes the network or the internet would go down. And everyone's experienced this at home, right? Your internet goes down and it's a crisis. Well, it's definitely a crisis when you're working with a bunch of businesses that are in technology. And so I figured out pretty quickly that these IT professionals would come down to my office and they would be very animated and very excited and, you know, upset. And they would say, we're down, you know, and they want to know what we're going to do about it. And of course, step one is to call the internet company and ask them what's going on and put in a ticket. So it's pretty much the same procedure. And I got to the point where I realized these IT professionals, they knew what the procedure was too. What they really wanted from me was to see that I was as upset and agitated as they were. And if I mirrored them, if I matched and mirrored them, of course, in a professional way, if I too stood up and, you know, in an excited way said, we're down, it really helped calm them down because they saw that I was taking their concerns seriously. And so sometimes matching and mirroring can really diffuse a situation. And then these are power phrases. This is a public speaker, motivational speaker, Dan O'Connor, that I really like. And he's got some power phrases that work in just about any communication setting. So you might be able to use this in your personal life, but you could certainly use it in your business life. And what I've found is that the most important aspect of using this phrase is the tone in which you use the words, that's interesting. Right? So it's important to practice your tone on this so that you don't sound confrontational. But often people can tell you things or say things to you that are just stunning, right? You're a little taken back by something that someone says to you. And so an easy response to that is, wow, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. Or, that's really interesting. Why would you say that? So something to remember about communication is that the listener in any communication dyad, the listener is the person that's in control. And so you want to try and put yourself in a position where you are becoming the listener. And the way to do that is to ask an open-ended question so that you, again, put yourself in the role of a listener. Because the truth is, when you're listening, you're in charge and you're in control. So sometimes people will pose something to you that is stunning or shocking. Maybe you don't know what to say, but what you want is more time, more information from them in order to truly understand what's going on. And so these are some phrases that you can use. That's interesting. Why would you do that? Or, wow, that's interesting. Why would you ask that? That's a great one for your mother-in-law. Okay, just kidding. All right, and then last but not least, from the queen herself, Maya Angelou, I've learned that people will forget what you do, they'll forget what you say, but they will never forget how you make them feel. And I think that's the essence of customer service. What we're trying to do is make our customers feel a certain way so that we have customers for life and advocates for life. All right, guys, so I'm going to turn it back over to Waldo to see if we had any questions that came through. I have a tendency to be thorough, so occasionally. There aren't too many questions.
I don't have any questions, but if you have one that either for Denise or for Christine, please type them, or you can raise your hand and I can unmute you to ask them direct. I do have one question. Am I reading this correctly that if you really want an employee to buy into your strategies, your plans, do they, in essence, become a customer of you as an owner?
So the philosophy here, the philosophy is that you treat your employees the way you want them to treat your customers. And so really everyone in your business is a customer, whether they work for you or whether they're purchasing something from you. Everyone's a customer. So it's that golden rule.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is some contact information that we put up on the screen, just so you know who the people at Wyoming Women's Business Center are. Waldo's contact information, my contact information, Debbie Gorski and Jonathan are also business counselors at the WWBC. You can reach out to any of us if you had questions about this webinar or would like us to walk through, any of the strategies so that you can implement some of these things in your business. And again, all of our services are free. And so with that, Waldo, I think I'll let you close it out.
Okay. We want to thank everyone for joining us today. Our next webinar is scheduled for Thursday, March 8th. It will be over the noon hour again from noon until 1 p.m. The topic will be calculating the true cost of an employee. Most people think it's time to hire someone, and they think just a wage that they're going to pay is all they have to be concerned with. And so we're going to take a little in-depth look and what other considerations you may have to think about before you hire that person. Please take the time to complete the survey that will launch as you leave the webinar today. We do read the surveys. We do look for suggestions as to future topics. And so these are very important to us, and we ask for your help. If you do have questions or further comments and need assistance, please feel free to contact us. Our business counseling is at no cost, and we would be happy to help you in any way we can. So with that, we will end our presentation today, and feel free to contact us if you have a need within your business. Thanks, everyone.